why did we start an ammo company? Why did that happen, right? So we went to Remington to try and get the ammo.
We're all still trying to figure this question out.
Yeah.
Get a long answer.
The even more gray hairs on his head are coming from this one, right?
Yeah, so looking back, we looked at, well, first of all, the major publicly traded ammo companies were retailing the ammo off their website during the big COVID race riot ammo crunch, right? And so there was like no ammo available, and we needed test fire ammo, we needed ammo for our stores and ranges, and ammo for R&D. And so, of course, we looked into the Remington plant, Remington Lone Oak ammo plant. And we had planned on buying that. We got stalking horse status, and Vista did not want us to own it, so they stepped in and made sure that we didn't. So it still didn't change the need for our own ammo production. Sure. So we went, and of course we had purchased the Metro campus, about 315 to 320,000 square feet. And it had an out parcel of land where you could build a primer plant, powder storage, powder bunker. And so we made the decision that we were going to build our own ammo plant. When we looked at it, Lone Oak was really the last major plant that had been, the Lone Oak was the Remington ammo plant, last major plant that had been built. And that was built in the 60s. And so we were like, well, it's time to build a new one. Of course, we had no clue how difficult it was. And it's quite obvious why no one's built an ammo plant or primer plant in the last 60, 70 years. It's extremely difficult to do right now.
Yeah, for sure. So a part of doing our own ammo is making sure that we have ammo to supply to not only our customers, but to us, right? But one of the biggest factors that we saw during COVID was not being able to get primers. So we decided to make our own primer facility. Right. So what was the thought behind that?
So when we looked at, okay, if we're going to spend a lot and tremendously, like 9 figures in capital to get this ammo plant going. And you look at it and you say, okay, we're going to spend all this, but we're going to depend on Vista, Lake City, Winchester, whatever for the primers. They could make this worthless because we can't make the product. And at the time, primers going for 8, 10, 12 cents a piece. How can you make any money doing that? And we decided that if we're going to do this ammo plant, we have to have a primer plant. And again, there hadn't been a primer plant built in the country that we're aware of since the 1960s. It's extremely difficult. It took us 2.5 years to get all the permitting done. The building we could make, but the permitting was multi-year problem. Of course, we got all the permits and construction done. Everything's starting to roll. But you can't really build an ammo plant without a primer plant. Sure. You can, but you'll be at the mercy. And the other thing is, like, think about it. These 2 major publicly traded companies. One is Vista. Everybody knows about them. Olin Corp is Winchester and Lake City, right? And they have massive government contracts. If you're the government and you want to control the supply of ammo, inside the country, you would give them, both of them, such big contracts that they had to prioritize. You could really stop the flow of ammo across the country. And who would that leave? It would leave us and Ammo Inc. and Hornady, which is, really a drop in the bucket compared to all the major companies. Yeah. And so we were concerned also on the primer side. If, let's just say Vista and Olin wanted to control who made ammo, they could control it by limiting the primers that are available for competitors. Because you think about it, they sell a primer to someone else, they're selling primer to a competitor. Yep. So we felt
wasn't that the comment that they told you from Vista? Good luck finding primers.
I don't want to disclose all those conversations, but let's just say we were highly motivated to have our own primer facility because the thing is it's a cutthroat industry, and while business is business, freedom's also freedom. And we're legit worried about the country because we saw, you saw what happened during the COVID and 2021 when really the government turned on its own people. And still I don't want to sound like conspiracy theorists, but there are people inside our government who do not want us to be free. Yeah. And they look at our freedom as something that is an annoyance to them and in the way of whatever goals they have for this country. And I feel like the American people desire to be free. Certain elements inside our government do not want that. So our thing was if you're going to have a Second Amendment, you have to be able to find ammunition in order to practice, in order to train, in order to defend yourself. And you can't do it with an empty firearm. Yep. So we decided that strategically from our vision and mission statement to provide freedom, and also from a business standpoint, for us to be able to supply our customers in the stores, customers online, test fire, that it was something that needed to be done. And when you look at it from a pure business standpoint, it's a terrible idea. I get reminded of that by Ed fairly often. Yeah. That it was a terrible business idea. When you look at it, if you're strictly, say you're an investment banker, and you say, like, strictly from a business standpoint, it has zero return on investment. But when it comes to the freedom factor, it has tons of dividends, and those are the dividends that we're looking at.
Yeah. So what? Go ahead.
To our bankers out there, it's a fantastic investment. Yeah. And we are going to make a lot of money. But the last time a primer plant was built, the Vietnam War was ongoing, and I'm sure the government helped cut the red tape for that, and there was no one there to cut the tape for us this time.
Yeah.
I think, and my reference to the struggles we had more had to do with the fact of the permitting and construction, and I mean, we ran into these bureaucracies where they hadn't seen one in 60-something years, which means
they're trying to hire people during inflation period time where people, I mean, prices of employees were going up. So, I mean, it just manning the plant to get
it, and then you have to have these permits, multiple permits to get it going. No one, very few people at these regulatory agencies felt comfortable signing it because if something bad happened, they didn't want it to be, well, their signature is what led to this terrible crisis.
Right. Yeah.
So it's easier for them to just put it on their desk and say they're talking to their boss or whatever it is. And we found that the reluctance of the organizations that were tasked with regulating it, the reluctance of them to sign it was one of the greatest impediments for us to get it going.
For sure. So how many primer facilities are you aware of in the United States?
Well, there's several, but most of them are controlled by two major corporations.
Yeah.
You have the CCI and Federal and Remington, all controlled by Vista, and you have Lake City and Olin, Winchester, controlled by Olin. So while there is a couple of them, they're controlled by very, very large publicly traded companies whose goal in life is to maximize return of profit to shareholders. That can be really dangerous, right? Ours is to, our goal is to return maximum freedom to America. So we just felt like that was a recipe for danger in this country, and we owed it to the country to build this primer plant.
Cameron here with Palmetto State Armory, and today I'm going to give you an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of how we make our ammo here at AAC, a JJE company. We're going to show you how all of our ammo is made, the QC process, what's going on, how it's formed, and all the raw to finished product. So come with me, and I'll show you what we're doing today. All right, so everything that you see on these shelves here goes into making your bullets. We got our stripped copper, we got our brass cups, we got our projectiles, all on these shelves right here that are going into your bullets that are gonna be making you your freedom seeds. So right here is where we store our bullets ready to go to be loaded. Every one of these tubs has on average over 50,000 projectiles sitting in them waiting to be loaded into your freedom seeds. This is our 9mm cell. We take a brass cup and we draw it out in this machine right here. It goes from a single brass cup and drawn out into a full-length 9mm casing. And this cell also gets the primer pocket and the flash hole and the head stamp done as well. Once the brass cups are done being drawn out, they go into a cleaning process. It is absolutely critical that we get all the oils off of it before it goes to our next step, which is going to be cutting in the extractor groove on the casing. Once they're nice and clean, they come over into our conveyor belt system, which are dumped in here, which will then automatically load to get our extractor cut done on our casing. Once the extractor cut is done on the casing, it then goes into our next machine, which will then trim it down to the correct overall length that is needed for 9mm. Once the cases are trimmed down to the proper overall length, it'll go through our inspection system. Every single round that we manufacture here at AAC is inspected 100% of the time for rejects. All the good are in the bucket and all the bad go out to the side. That way we're making sure that we're selling out consistent ammo 100% of the time. This is our 5.56 cell. It's a very similar process to 9mm. It starts at the brass cup and gets drawn out into a 5.56 brass case. This is our 5.56 drawing out process where it starts at the brass cup and it ends up being a drawn out case that's got the head stamp, the primer pocket, and the flash hole already done. So this right here is our annealing process. It is absolutely critical that we heat up this brass to be able to give it a proper shoulder on the next step of our operations. So after it's annealed, it then goes into our neck system. This is a conveyor belt that will drop it into our neck sizing system that will give it a neck and also trim the casing at the exact same time. So once it's annealed and it's necked down and trimmed, it's critical to then heat treat it back to get it hard again. Right behind us is our heat treat tank that is an automated crane system that will lift up the brass and drop it in the heat treat tank. And now over here is when it comes out, it is now hard again and ready to go to our next annealing process to get the brass ready to be loaded. So once it's heat treated, it is then critical that we anneal just the neck this time, so that way it's ready to be loaded for bullets. So this room right here is where we load all of our primers into our casings. Every one of these machines is automated that will then load the primers into the cases. On this first machine right here, what we're doing right now is we're loading our primers into our 308 cases. We're now in our lead extruding room, and I'm gonna show you how we go from a lead ingot into a coiled lead to be loaded into projectiles. So our lead ignits are loaded onto our conveyor belt system, which feeds into a melting tank. The melting tank then melts it down and it's formed into a round draw bar stock. That bar stock is then loaded onto our another press that will then extrude it out through a die process to a certain diameter that will come out in a coil that will then be ready to be jacketed and loaded into projectiles. So once our lead is now formed to the proper diameter, it will come over to the machine where the copper jacket is placed over the lead coil to be made in the projectile for the rounds. So this machine right here will take a blank strip of copper and turn it into a jacket, which will then be placed over a lead projectile. So this is our pistol plate loading cell. On this cell, we load 300,000 rounds of ship. And on this cell, what happens is they take a blank casing, get the powder in it, and then load it with the projectile at the very end to give you a complete cartridge. Right behind me is where we're loading our match grade bullet ammo and our hunting ammo for our 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, 5.56, and 5.7 by 28. We're here now at our ammo packaging facility. This is where it goes from a round drum to a box to your shelf. So now that you've seen our ammo tour and how we went from a raw brass cup to a finished product, I'm gonna take you over and show you how our primers are made. We're here at the primer facility. We're gonna go inside, give you all a behind the scenes tour of what's going on back here. We're almost ready to be making your primers on a daily basis. So let's go see what's going on and show you around. So I'm gonna take you behind this door and show you where the magic happens. This is where the explosive synthesis actually occurs. Now that we're in our explosive synthesis room, each one of these walls is 18 inches thick, reinforced with rebar and concrete to make sure that we are safe at all times. Each one of these rooms has an individual process in there that is being mixed into a different component that is then moved to the next room as it goes down. Once the mixing is complete, they are then packaged into 1 pound containers that are then handed over to the production line to be formed into primers. So this room is our final mixing room. This is where our powder is final mixed and put into 1 pound containers. So once it's mixed, it comes into 1 pound containers and it's walked outside and then it's handed over to the production team through a secure door that will ensure the safety of all the team members involved. Once the 1 pound cup is placed inside this door, it is only allowed to be opened by 1 door at a time. The cup will then be brought out and brought over to our plate loading system. In this room is where they will dump out the powder mix and put it onto the plate and scrub it and get ready to be pressed into the primers. So once the plate is loaded with the powder, it then comes over to what's behind me, and this is where the cups and the powder actually get pressed together and formed into a primer. Once that process is done, it then goes into an inner packaging sleeve and goes into our dry room to dry out before final packaging is done. We're now in our wastewater treatment part of the building. During our mixing process, we mix a lot of the chemicals in water, and so we make sure that we treat these to a safe level before they get released.
This right here behind me is where our final packaging will occur. This is where they will be sleeved up and sent over to our ammo facility across the street to then be used in making your AAC ammo.
Join us next week for episode 6, where we discuss how we developed our website from the ground up into a top e-commerce platform by leveraging strategic partnerships and expanding manufacturing capabilities.
We're here at JJE Capital, our corporate office, and today I'm going to show you how we've become a top 100 e-commerce website in the world.